Okay, I promised you guys this one a long time ago, so we're gonna try to get into it today and see what happens. So right now I am on Truenas Scale Cobia 23.10, and you know, Dragonfish came out after that, and then I was kind of saving up for the Electric Eel because that's when everything switched from Kubernetes to Docker officially, and now I've waited so long that there's Fangtooth out. So we're going to eventually get to this Electric Eel update here, but there's a bunch of prep work that we got to do beforehand. So let's get into that. Now, the first thing we're going to do is go into our apps tab, and then I've got a ton of stuff running. Some of this is on TrueCharts, so anything that's on TrueCharts, if we can migrate it to the Truenas official, it is supposed to transfer over when we go to Electric Eel, so we're going to try that. So at least with all of our R's. So I know I did just reboot, so a couple of these icons aren't quite here yet, but we're going to go through. We're going to go through sonar, radar, lidar, all of that, and I'll show you guys how to do a backup and then a restore on the new version. It's going to be a minute. I forgot how long this thing takes to reboot, and I am desperately hoping that Electric Eel solves this problem. This is probably going to be 20 minutes before all of these come through and actually deploy. So I'll let you know. Okay, it's been 7 minutes. Let's hit refresh and see how far down. Oh my god. It takes forever, and it's just so random. I have no idea why these take so long to deploy and what order they go in. It's not the order I installed them. It's not alphabetical. It's just seemingly whichever one it wants to next will go from deploying to running. So we'll continue to wait. Okay, it's been 11 minutes and we are getting there. So some stuff has finally launched here. So we're going to just start off with sonar. So you will launch sonar and then go to the systems tab and then backup. And then backup now. You can see here the average of these between 34 and 37 megabytes. So as your library grows, so too will this file size. But it'll generate this, and then we can just click to download. So you see the one I just created has a little user icon. The ones that are kind of scheduled every so often will have the clock on them, but we'll click this one right here, which should send it to my downloads folder. And then I'll show you what to do with that in just a moment. Okay, so I've got that in my download folder. Now this is where it gets a little sticky. So yeah, I've already got a sonar and a sonar 4K running. But those are, again, the TrueCharts. So I've got to go back up to Discover Apps. And see here, we get a search for sonar, and you can see the Truenas community train. So we're going to click on that, and we're going to install an instance of this. We can't name it the same thing, so we're going to have to put a little addition on the end of the name here. Then we should be able to just launch this thing just as is. Maybe. Okay, that only took a minute, but I didn't want to bore you with it. So let's see if it shows up here on our list. All right, so we've got our Sonarr 4K, and then our Sonarr update that's new. So that shows that it's still deploying here, so we'll try to launch that here in just a moment and see what happens. So we'll click on it, go to the web portal. It's probably not quite ready yet. Do note that the ports are going to change on all of this between your old TrueCharts and your TrueNAS. So the TrueNAS port is 30027, and the original one from TrueCharts I had was port 8989. So that is going to change for all of these. So if you've got something like the Heimdall or the Homar, you're going to have to change all of those hard links, which is a small price to pay. I don't even know if there is a TrueNAS version of Heimdall, but I absolutely love this. I use it for everything, especially on my phone. It's fantastic. So we'll explore those a little bit later when we get down that rabbit hole of updating some of these things that were not available on the official TrueNAS trains. So we'll get there. All right. Sweet. Stand by here while I put in the authentication. Disable this. Okay, so now the authentication is set up. You'll see you just have kind of absolutely nothing. So 0 settings, 0 anything. But if you go to System and Backup again, and then Restore a Backup, we will choose our file. Click Restore, and we'll see what happens. It restored it. It's now going to restart it and then reload it. Seems pretty straightforward. Pretty important thing not to screw up. I noticed I had a couple of errors and I was missing my main root folder. So when you go and set this up, you've got to make sure that in the additional storage, you pick the host path, and then you name your host path again. So I like to call mine media, and then I point it to my single redundancy array here for the folder called media. Now underneath that I've got separate for music, movies, TV, whatever. So I'd just like to do the high level of media for everything just to be nice and consistent, and then I drill down based off of there. So we'll click update, and then that error should go away as soon as I put a / in there. I don't know why I was struggling there. I just didn't have the / and then the word media for my mount path. But here it is, / media, and then you drill down until you find your mount path. Again, I just label everything media just to stay consistent, because I know that I will screw it up if I don't. So that I saved has launched, and back in here, I've got 0 errors. It is doing its thing. It's gonna re-download all of those cover arts, and I'm not going to show you guys any of that by clicking on the home of the series button here, but it's going to be doing its thing, and I guarantee you all of the stuff that you had in there is been refound and is tied in perfectly. This has all of your settings for everything already backed up from your previous version. There may be some connections that we've got to redo if you are using Overseerr or anything, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So now we are back in the apps, and what we can do is we can delete this old version. So I'm just going to stop the TrueCharts version of Sonarr, and then we're just going to click the delete button. confirm, and continue. Again, make sure that your new one launched and everything's perfectly fine before you do this. You probably don't even have to delete it. I just don't want the chance of a bunch of garbage migrating when we get to Electric Eel. So I'm going to clean it up now just because. Alright, so now I'm just going to repeat that same process for Sonarr 4K, for Radarr 4K, for Prowlarr, for Overseerr, for LiDAR, and for Radarr. It should be exactly the same. You just do that backup file, reinstall the Truenas version, and then upload that file and kind of restore from backup. I'll let you know how it goes. Don't forget that on your second instance, you're just going to need to bump the port up by 1. So it defaults to 30027. Just change that to 30028 or whatever else you'd like. Put your mount path in and click install, and it should go this time. On to Radarr, going to do the same thing here. Just installed the Truenas version, so we'll go in, make a backup of the old one, and restore from that backup. System, backup now, about a 30 megabyte zip file, and do the same thing all over again. New version again, system, backup, restore, choose the file. Now, as that folder gets more and more full, make sure you're picking the right file. You know, maybe even delete them afterwards, or just really make sure you're clicking on the right one. Now, one last thing that you're going to have to do for all of these is on the top left, whether it's series or movies, whatever you're in, click there, and then there's an update all button right next to it, and that'll re-scrape for all of the cover art images and all that stuff. Otherwise, it'll just be a bunch of blank squares with titles in them. Now on to Radarr 4K, so we're going to rename. Then we have to bump this up by 1. Add additional storage. And install just like the rest of them. Pretty boring. You're getting the hang of this. System, backup now. Click it to download, and away we go. Alright, now Prowlarr is the first place where we're going to have to do something a little bit different, but only because we just updated every one of our other R's. So if you go to settings and then apps, that's going to list the applications that we have. So if we wanted to start off with LiDAR, you can see I've got my old server address, the 192.168.29.30, and then port 9696. That has since changed since we updated everything. So you just got to go through these and update them as we go. So it shouldn't be that hard, and then we should just be able to do the backup and the restore. So I'll let you know how it goes. Okay, do the same thing. Download the backup, upload it, and then go through, and you've got to update in your settings and then apps. You're going to have to go through each and every one of these. So LiDAR, the first one you got to change is your Prowlarr server. So your Prowlarr server will have changed. The default for the Truenas train version of it is 30050. And then the LiDAR service I have got installed on 30014. So again, just go into your Truenas, click on them till they pop up, and then you'll be able to see up in the URL what port you're running on for each one. Then you can click the test button and you'll get a green check there as long as everything works. And you'll just have to go through and do that for all 4, 5, 6, 7, however many you guys got. You know, depending on if you're running Whisper and all that stuff. Okay, this leaves us to Overseerr, and I don't know if this is going to back up the same way, but I guess we'll find out together. Okay, from what I could find, there is no like backup restore, but it seems pretty easy. It launches, you sign in with Plex, then there's a little button where you can scan and it'll find your local server. I'm not going to scroll up because it shows my external IP for some reason. But then once that finds that from the little drop down, then you select what libraries you want to sync and you just hit continue. So we'll go from there. Okay, it looks like we're going to have to manually reconnect the Radarr, Radarr 4K, Sonarr, and Sonarr 4K. Not a huge deal. You'll just click add new, name it, point it to the URL, point it towards the port, and then we've got to go back in and get that API key again from Radarr. So to get that API key again, you're going to go into Radarr, go to settings, and then general, and then about down here there'll be a little copy button where you can copy that, and then you can paste that into your API key section. And the rest of this looks like it's kind of grayed out until we click the test button, so we'll see if that worked. Failed to connect. Let's see, maybe I copied and pasted wrong. Okay, so you put in your server, you put in the port of your new Radarr service, you paste in that API key, and then you've got to hit test, and that'll populate these other drop downs. So quality profile, just select your HD 720 or 1080p for your base version, pick your root folder, and then set your minimum availability, and then we'll hit add server. We can then add our second Radarr server for the 4K. Same thing there, you'll have to go to settings, general in your Radarr 4K instance and copy and paste that API key in. You hit test and then it'll pop up with your quality profile. So for this you're going to select Ultra HD, then your movies folder, and then whatever you want there, add server. And then we've got to do the same thing for both of our Sonarr servers. Okay, so we went in and we've named it Sonarr, we put in our server IP, and then the port of 30027. We've copy and pasted the API key from the settings general tab. And now we've got to go down to test the connection again and select our quality profile. Again, this is for the standard HD one, so we'll select the HD, our root folder. Oh, I guess it's going to make us pick one of those. And then we'll add the server. And we got to do one last time for the 4K. And we've pasted in that API key. We'll test it, and since this is for the 4K, there we go. And then finish setup, and we'll see what happens. Oh, wonderful. Looks like it's running. It's already got a bunch of trending and popular. So now we'll have to go in and we'll have to connect it back to Plex and all that fun stuff. Alright, so since we're logged in with Plex, I'm gonna think that all we've got to do is import the users again. So let's cross our fingers and hope that this works. Sweet, so we can just select everybody, import them. Now the last bit that we should need is SAB, or our download handling client. So just searched for that. Gonna install it here. Just looks pretty straightforward. It'll install on 30055 and additional storage. May as well just give it additional storage just cause. Okay, with SAB, if you go from the main screen, there's a little gear icon on the top right. If you hit that, go to General, and then scroll down. I just moved my face here to cover my API key, but you can create a backup. Now that is going to go to whatever you have defined as your completed folder for downloads. And then you can, in your new instance, which I'm in now, when you first log in, it'll ask you what language. You select your language, and then you say restore backup. You'll choose the file, click restore backup, and everything looks like it's golden here. So I'll go through it one more time and just make sure it's not pointing to anything weird. But this will import all of my Usenet providers, so that I don't have to make a whole bunch of changes in the background. So yeah, that imported the folders, the servers. So you can see right now I switched over to Frugal, and they've been fantastic so far. Still have a block account. And then I think I just let my Usenet farm. No, that was another block account, so I just kind of left that on there. But again, just moved the priority to 99 just because I'm not using it currently. It has all my categories saved for everything. So this should be good to go. So I think we are nearing clicking the update button and seeing what happens. Alright, so one last check. Looks like we got cloud flared. Everything that says TrueCharts we're going to lose. Homar is available. I'm just going to wait to install it anyway, just because I'm going to have to change all of those ports. It's going to be a bunch of work anyway. Home Assistant, Image. I was really worried about this one. Thankfully, I had installed the Truenas version. As far as I know, there is no like backup and restore, like one-click button. They've got apparently great wikis on migrating. I just didn't want to have to go through all that because it seems like a giant pain in the butt. I really hope that they do a future feature that is just like a one-click backup and restore of all of that background data wherever it's installing that. Let's see, Nextcloud is on Truenas. We've got the Amada controller, which was a kind of a nightmare to get over. You just had to kind of time it right. It had a backup and restore through its online activity. Overseerr we got. Plex is already migrated. We got Prowlarr, we got Radarr, both instances. We got Reader, we got SAB, we got Sonarr, and tail scales on Truenas. So we're going to lose a couple of things. I really like this speed test tracker, so I'm going to lose all my data on that. I'd imagine if it migrates over, cool. I'm not expecting anything that is TrueCharts to make it through when we do the update. So I'm happy with all this. Let's go to System, Update, and we're going to see what happens to Electric Eel. We're going to click Confirm, cross our fingers. We're going to see how long this takes. Here goes. The Download looks to be going fairly reasonably paced. 35, 36 megs a second. Not terrible, I guess. Well, it got to 100, and now it's doing something. Alright. Apply pending update. Let's see what happens. Oh. It's doing its thing. Or let's leave it be. So, this is immediately surprising because everything looks pretty and it's wonderful, and then I click down here in apps and it says no applications are installed. So I'm going to poke around here and see if I can find out where everything went that was supposed to migrate over. Okay, that definitely did not work. Only took about 10-15 minutes to update, but then none of the apps were showing up. So then I remembered a little something. Back when I transitioned from FreeNAS to TrueNAS, I had to go through every single step of the upgrade path. So I think the same thing is happening here. So I was on Cobia. So I originally just jumped right to Electric Eel, and that screwed everything up. So I found this awesome little flowchart here, and I think if I go Dragonfish, then Electric Eel, I should then even be able to get to Fangtooth without an issue. So we'll find out and see what happens. Okay, so Dragonfish appears to have gone smoothly, and my apps are slowly deploying here. So once this thing's up and running, we will see if we can do the next step. Alright, this is already way faster than Cobia. At about the 12-minute mark, everything seems to be running, and they added this nice little CPU percentage and the amount of RAM that you're using for each service that you've got on here, so that's pretty neat so far. Alright, now we're trying it again with Electric Eel. Alright, now we will try to push the Electric Eel upgrade. Okay, so we finally made it to Electric Eel, and it was 100% a networking error, but I don't think that going along the path of the order of releases hurt anything, so I still would recommend that along the way. But my issue was with my Omada controller. So TP-Link is a running container, and it was not letting me have any network connection at all. I was on the TrueCharts version of that, so I had to install the TrueNAS version of that, the official release, and it looked like it was working, but it was not finding any of my devices, and it was not doing anything that it should. So if you scroll all the way down and you've got this host network checkbox, it says it's recommended to keep that disabled. The only way it'll work is if you enable it. So that's what worked for me, and finally allowed everything to update and install all of these applications. So there's a couple that I knew were going to break based off of the documentation associated with them. So Nextcloud broke again because I believe they moved to a different file structure, so we'll have to revisit that one. Tail Scale is stuck in deploy for some reason, so we'll figure that one out. And the only others that I lost were my speed test tracker, which I really thoroughly enjoy, but again, that was a TrueCharts application, so I'm going to make some separate videos on how to install any custom apps that you'd like to do in the future. But everything else came back up and running just fine. We are now on Electric Eel, even though, you know, if we go to update, we've already got Fangtooth is released, so I may try to push to that in the next couple of days, but I really am getting used to and kind of liking the feel of Electric Eel, and everything being in containers so far. I've even kind of messed around and done a Portainer container launcher, and again, I'll go into the differences between a custom app launching in this type of container versus the Truenas containers, but they both function really well. It's just kind of be user preference and what you're into. You will have to learn some YAML going forward, but we'll go over that in a future video as well. So I hope that helped get you guys backed up and restored and everything up and running. Okay, so we made it. We officially went from Cobia to Electric Eel and all the steps in between. Everything is up and working. There are a couple of final comments. Heimdall is now available as a discoverable app in the App Store, so you can just kind of install that, and you will have to go through and you'll have to add each of your individual services so that they show up. But this is by far my favorite, especially for when I get Tailscale back up and running, and I can just access this on my phone and get to any of the services that I need really quickly. And then the last bit you'll need to do is if you have a URL set up through Cloudflare, so like I've got my Nextcloud and my Overseerr, you're gonna have to go back into Cloudflare and update the final destination of those, so the port that those are now going to. So if you forget to do that, it'll just be pointing towards the old port and you'll lose your web pages essentially. But that's pretty quick and easy in their web portal. So that's it. Hope you guys got there in the end, and if you are not using the TP-Link Omada, I'm sure your transition was a little bit quicker and easier, but now that we're all in containers, it should be pretty easy updates, knock on wood, moving forward. Shouldn't be any crazy breaking changes like this, hopefully in the next couple of years, but if there are, I always recommend just kind of hanging back and don't force that update until there's some good documentation on what to do. This was relatively pain-free for me, again, except for that TP-Link Omada, but we got there in the end. So good luck, have fun, hope you guys enjoyed.